This is KTVO's Good Morning Heartland.
And welcome back. Today we have Dr. Puckett from Complete Family Medicine, and he's here to answer your medical questions. How are you doing today?
Doing well, thanks.
So we posted this topic on our Facebook page, and we got a couple of questions. And the one that we're going to focus on today comes from Stuart Donald of Southern Iowa, and he wrote asking about a tick bite. So a lot of us, have encountered tick bites, especially as we venture into the woods looking for mushrooms. So we want to know, are diseases from tick bites very common?
Actually in the United States, because we don't have a lot of mosquito-borne illnesses like they do in some of the developing countries, ticks are the #1 insect-driven disease transmitter. We call those zoonotic diseases. And ticks are so much trouble because they cause a lot of different disease processes, and the way that they come after you, so to speak, is by doing something called questing. And so when they quest, they kind of stand up on the edge of the grass leaf and put their arms up and wait for somebody to come by. And ticks are actually fairly sophisticated. They don't really see us, but they do sense our carbon dioxide and also the heat that we generate or any other animal. And ticks they're not really specific. They'll go after a reptile, they'll go after a mammal, a bird, anything that bleeds. And so because they're pretty generous with who they would attack, they can transmit a lot of different diseases.
All right. So we associate Lyme disease with ticks. Is that the only disease that we can encounter from ticks, or are there other ones?
No, actually in Missouri there's at least 6 different diseases that have been reported. Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which is the most common here in Missouri, ehrlichiosis, tularemia, Lyme, or what we really call Lyme-like disease, the Heartland virus, and the Southern Tick-Associated Rash Illness, or STARI. And what's interesting about these is most of them have been discovered just in the last 30 years. It's a fairly new area of medicine. Talking a little bit about Lyme disease, we think Lyme disease ticks, but actually we've never found the actual Lyme disease transmission in Missouri. We've had illnesses that we're not really sure yet what transmit them, what the infectious agent is, and that's why in Missouri we kind of call it Lyme-like disease. The most common Rocky Mountain spotted fever, there were over 270 cases back in 2011. That was the last year that they had any data crunched. So again, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Lyme disease, all those things are all those other diseases that we mentioned earlier are possibilities to get from the tick.
All right. So I never encountered a tick myself until I moved here. So what are some ways that we can do to avoid getting bitten by a tick?
Well, if you think about, again, that tick on a leaf or a brush that's got his legs up, so walking away from the brush. So if you're on a trail in the woods, walk to the middle of the trail. The whole idea of that ticks in the sky and drop down on you has never really been documented. They don't go very high up. So if you'll keep your legs out of the brush, then you're probably going to be in good order. The other thing that you can do is take your pants, tuck them inside your socks, and tape around them even so that you can seal off that area of entry. And then wear light colored clothes. It's not because that we really need for them to be able to, that they can detect the color. What really is the issue is that when you're wearing light colored clothes, you can see the little guy crawling up on you, and you can get him flicked off before he gets up and makes a bite.
Okay, so what about kids? What can we do to help them avoid getting ticks?
Well, all of us can use DEET, which is an insect repellent, and DEET is a very effective means of keeping the ticks away. It kind of discourages them, they don't like it, so whenever you walk by, they kind of retract their front legs and don't jump. And you can use DEET sprays. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that it can be used down as low as 2 months of age, as long as you're using 30% or less, which is a pretty strong DEET spray. There also is permethrin-encoded clothing. So you've probably heard about, you can get this tick-resistant clothing, and it's because it's got this chemical in there that actually can kill the tick, not just distract it. So whenever it jumps onto it, then the tick, it gets sick and either jumps off or falls off or dies. And so those, as long as you launder those appropriately, follow the instructions, they can provide tick resistance for quite a time.
All right. And finally, when Stuart posted his question, he specifically asked about what he should do after getting bitten by a tick.
Sure. First thing is to get that tick off as soon as you find it. And there's lots of old wives' tales about oils and fire and da-da-da and all that stuff. It's real simple. You just need to use a pair of fine-ended tweezers, grab the tick real close to the skin, because if you think about that, if it's infected with one of these bugs inside of it, when you squeeze its body, it's going to spit and puke all that junk into you. So get down against the skin, don't make the tick puke in you, and pull and seal off at the skin, at the head, and then pull it out.
Okay.
And then the other things that Stuart needs to do is just kind of watch for, again, flu-like symptoms, all those vague things of fever and muscle aches and nausea, vomiting. And with those 6 diseases, they all present a little bit different. But if you know you've had a tick bite and you get sick following that, whenever you seek medical care, you just need to be sure and remember to mention that, hey, I had a tick bite. The last thing that we watch for is something called erythema migrans, or it's that Lyme disease rash. And so when we get bit by a tick, they actually generate in their saliva a blood clot breaker, so that they can, while they're attached, they don't want that to clot off like a scab. They want to be able to keep getting blood. So we are allergic to that often. So you'll get a red area of irritation around where the tick has bit. If that happens pretty instantaneous, then that's not erythema migrans, that's not Lyme disease. A rash from Lyme disease presents about at least 3 days after the bite, and it will often it has to be at least 2 inches in diameter to be erythema migrans, and it often has a central clearing. And if that presents, or if we're suspicious that there's disease, we do have lab tests that we can run to try to detect for these tick bite diseases, but they're very expensive, and they take quite a while to get back, so we often just make the decision to treat with antibiotics if we feel like it's necessary.
All right. Well, thank you so much. All great information. What we'll do is we'll post all this on our website at heartlineconnection.com, as well as Dr. Puckett's information with Complete Family Medicine, and we'll be right back.